It's all things MMA on KCLR and for scoreline.ie. My name is Ken McGuire, joined as always this week by Miles Price, he head coach of Team Rhino Kilkenny. How are you? How are things?
All good, Ken. Yeah, super psyched about the gyms reopening now. It's just only around the corner, so looking forward to that.
That's pretty much it. You guys get is it a start of July time in terms of the contact stuff, the MMA stuff, but you get to open for training back in June?
Yeah, it's looking like individual training June 7th and then July 5th for like classes, etc. Not sure what the extent is, if it's level 3 or level 2 or... Yeah, but just we're open, so that's good. Good news all around, really.
That's the main thing. What we're looking at, Miles, this week, we obviously covered it in the preview last week. It's the fallout from UFC 262, the promotion's latest big event, the main event of which was Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler contesting the UFC's lightweight title. When we spoke about it last week, you were kind of having a bit of a head and heart moment. So Charles Oliveira, he's worked his way up over years and years. He's over 10 years with the UFC. He's nearly 30 fights with them. Michael Chandler, living the American dream, 35, family man, has come across from Bellator and has been dropped into this title match very, very early on. He had quite a spectacular win over Dan Hooker back at the start of the year, but found himself in the title frame very, very quickly. Obviously, we know at this stage Charles Oliveira is the new UFC lightweight champion. How did you think it went? Did it live up to expectations? Did we see something new from both fighters?
Yeah. I feel like that Charles showed his resilience, which is something that was kind of questioned in the past in regards to when the going gets tough and it goes into the trenches a bit. He tends to sometimes just let it keep going deeper into the trenches as opposed to kind of adapting and prevailing. So I think he's really shown his growth and his resilience there. It matches his IQ because he's a great fighter to watch. Like he's very, very technical. Everything he does is just crisp. And I really do feel like I've sparred a lot of anxious people in my time. I know what it's like to be that anxious person in a spar. I know what it's like to be that anxious person in a fight. And every time I spar somebody that's, just really anxious to spar you, and they're just like, wrestler or striker kind of thing, or many wrestlers, they do two things that Michael Chandler, I felt, did throughout the fight. And I feel like he still hasn't shaken off these anxious cobwebs yet, because when I saw him ducking and throwing hooks and just slamming Oliveira while he was on his back standing, they're just things you do when you're anxious and you're nervous. They're not calculated movements. Like, they're really not, I think he was trying to get Charles out there too early, and he clipped him. Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to be able to go 5 rounds doing that. And, he's a short guy. It's pretty evident. Like, I mean, Oliveira was a featherweight before, and he was towering over Michael Chandler. He was huge compared to him. And Michael Chandler looks big on Instagram because he's a muscly fecker. But I mean, in general, he's quite small for the division, So
yeah, sure.
Charles was a lot bigger. So to make himself smaller by kind of ducking and swinging with his left hooks and right hooks, it was wasting energy, and it wasn't setting up his hooks at all. And when you have an experienced black belt on your back like that, wrestlers tend to kind of give up their back anyway because it's instincts from wrestling matches. But I mean, to jump back and slam him like that, it makes things worse, and he was lucky to get out with that, really, because not many people get out of Charles's back when he takes their back, So I think I think there's a lot to be said for the future for Michael Chandler. I think that he's going to shake off those nervous cobwebs and he's going to come back better. But I mean, in regards to how Charles performed, it was just superb, did great.
Like, resilience is certainly one thing. What struck me about Oliveira was this crazy sense of calm that he seemed to bring. Like, if Chandler was that explosive kind where he's trying to get in and get out early, you might kind of take a little bit of that with him from the Dan Hooker fight, because he got in and he got out very early, and he was like, okay, now I've arrived, I've made a statement, I'm going to be able to carry this into my next fight, and we'll get in, we'll get out early again. But you could see it when you could see it when Oliveira took his back first. Like you're saying, the wrestlers tend to give up their back easily, but he just kind of, even his body position, just sitting back in, looking for he got the hooks in early, looking to set up the choke, up until the point of the slam, which, like you're saying, kind of worsened things and only gave more strength to Oliveira's body triangle at the time. But this real sense of calm, you could see it at the end of the first round. Anybody else might, be in a lot of trouble, but Oliveira very comfortable in doing what he did on the ground. Looking for guard, he knew, I think, at that stage he wasn't in any danger, even though there's like a minute to go in the first round. He'll survive it. He'll take it into the second round. He takes it into the second round, and it's like a complete reversal. And
happened very fast.
It did, yeah. It's like it was 19 seconds into the second round. And I don't know whether it was a confidence thing. Maybe it was a bit of an adrenaline dump on Chandler's behalf, but he didn't seem the first half Chandler that he was, and all of a sudden you just get that lovely shot from Oliveira that puts him away. Maybe not the finish we thought we were going to see.
I just think it was beautiful technique. That left hook was just, it wasn't too. It was like kind of a hybrid between a jab and a hook. It wasn't like wild and short. It was kind of like long on the center line and just like curled in at the last second with his right side really well protected. So,
but very calculated.
Very calculated, but that's the way Charles fights. He's a real IQ, he's a real technical based fighter. Like everything he does, he's just well schooled. He's just one of those guys that he just spends time and time again repeating the boring stuff. And I say a lot of this to myself internally when I'm training for competitions or wanting to improve a skill. And to my students is the definition of boring is a lack of concentration. You can just see that Charles has done the boring things over and over and over and over again and just kept his concentration through those fundamentals that just increase your IQ far, far faster than any of the real complex advanced movements ever would, So I feel like that he has that confidence and that fight IQ from repeating the fundamentals over and over again,
Well, the fundamentals, as you bring them up, I noted it coming up in the commentary side of things. The fundamentals seem to be what let Tony Ferguson down again, and we'd questioned this. We'd questioned this last week. He was coming up against Beneil Dariush, who had nothing to lose and everything to gain from putting in a performance. Tony, on the other hand, probably had an awful lot more to lose, having come off the back of the defeats to Justin Gaethje and to Charles Oliveira before that. What we saw in the co-main event was effectively a domination of Ferguson by Beneil. Like a spectacular performance. His fundamentals super on point, and Tony would have built an awful lot of his wins and his reputation on forgetting the fundamentals and going for the crazy stuff and going for spinning this and backflip that or whatever the case is. But we saw a real good example of, if you get your fundamentals right, you've got an awful lot more power than you might think.
Yeah, 100%. As you pointed out there, we discussed this previously about Tony Ferguson, that what lets him down is the fundamentals. It lasted for a period because he kept on drawing people into the firefight, and his unorthodox style kind of got him through that amazing winning streak, and he got an interim world title out of it. I mean, it's worked. It's had its place, but this failure to adapt, I feel like, has really let him down, to be honest. It's like, I feel like he hasn't made the same transition as the likes of like Justin Gaethje would have made, where he went from constantly getting lured into these battles, you know, to you know, being a lot more calculated in a fight, where he's thinking before he throws, he's adapting when he needs to, and it just brought his game to another level. Like, and I don't think Tony has actually made that transition. I don't think it's his age, to be honest with you, as well. I know people are saying that, oh, it's his age and it's this. I don't think it is. Like, I think MMA is an old man's game as much as it is a young man's game now. You know, look at DC, look at Stipe, look at Jan Blachowicz. They're like they're
the old guard, really.
Yeah, 38 to 40 is what they're at. You know, who's to say Tony can't be like that? You know, like, it's just things that people say to try and find what the solution is for why somebody doesn't perform. Sure. It's simple. Tony hasn't adapted. He's not as fundamentally sound as he should be, and he hasn't brought back to those fundamentals in a long time. And, you know, I think if he focused 6 months to those fundamentals, he'd probably come in and win a lot more fights. I mean, that's what Beneil Dariush did. Like, they listened to him in his post-fight interview. Like, he's like, I wanted to get into a battle, but I had to stick to my game plan. And his game plan was very boring fundamentals. Level change, double leg, take him down, hold him there. Simple, you know.
Well, it's worked out certainly in his favor anyway. I'm not sure where he goes in terms of rankings. There's talk of him at least looking for some kind of, to get in on some kind of title eliminator. He'd love to see his name up there in the lightweight picture. Where do you think we go next in terms of the lightweight side of things in general? I don't think Tony Ferguson is going to figure in that conversation for the future.
No.
Charles Oliveira obviously is going to have to defend the title at some stage. Again, with Michael Chandler, I think is being thrown into the title race, or the title scene, we'll say, very quickly, and having lost in the way that he did at the weekend, I think that's going to count against him. Are we looking at potentially, you know, whoever comes out on top between McGregor Poirier in the summer as being the lightweight contest? Would you go for something like Max Holloway maybe to make a jump up, or Alexander Volkanovski, who's teased something similar?
I think Alexander is very small for a lightweight now, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You've seen stranger things happen. Well, I mean, look at what happened to Max Holloway when he came up to fight Dustin Poirier. Like, it was just the size and the power difference was just different. You know, it's just different. And I feel like that it's doable for sure. Like, I mean, if we've seen Jorge Masvidal, Gilbert Burns move up to welterweight, and they've made the transition very well. So I think it's something that it can't just happen straight away. Look at Barboza and Lance Fanata. They are much well suited in the featherweight division, and they're a lot more dominant in that division. So going up or going down is good, but it just needs to be done correctly. Like, you know, and I don't think there's any real marketing appeal. I think wherever McGregor is in the picture, he is going to get those fast track fights to the title, and that's what the UFC are doing again. You know, the UFC aren't going to mess around if McGregor's in the picture. They want to make money. They want to make it fast. They don't care what the public think. They don't care about rankings. Whoever wins between Poirier and McGregor is getting that title fight.
Last thing I wanted to touch on, Miles, I don't know if you got to see it. We had tipped Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza last week as a potential barn burner and a real fight to watch. They served up an absolute fight to watch, but the knockout at, you know, whatever it was midway through the third round seemed to catch everybody by surprise. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it myself. Shane had been taken his fair amount of hits. Barboza with a real kind of heavy right hand that he looked to have shaken off, and it was like he was happy to kind of keep coming forward and shake it off, and his body was like no, his body had entirely switched off. And so we see the punch land, and then there's that kind of 2 or 3 or 4 second gap until he starts to stumble backwards, and then it's lights out. Ever seen anything like it? Or
I've never seen a stoppage like that, to be honest with you. I think it was a little bit of I think it was a little bit of a shock for everybody that was watching, really. You know what I mean? It was very, very strange because it was a good 5 or 6 seconds really before he kind of level changed and start wobbling backwards. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, I don't think anybody really has an explanation for that. Maybe on the inside with the medics, etc., and experts, they'd have an idea of what's going on there. But
Sure.
that delayed reaction is definitely something I haven't seen before. You know.
Well, it was just another one of the highlights, we'll say, out of UFC 262. That's where we'll leave it for the minute. Miles, if people want to get in touch with you, obviously, you know, you'd mentioned at the outset that the gym is going to be reopening. You've been fielding queries already about the mixed martial arts side of things and the BJJ side of things. If people are looking to get in on the action and get themselves booked in, maybe towards the summer reopening, what's the best way to get in touch?
There is a waiting list, and it's not guaranteed to get yourself in there because we do have limited spaces in our facility. But if you do email Team Rhino Kilkenny at gmail.com or send a DM to the Team Rhino Kilkenny Instagram or Facebook social media pages and platforms, we'll be able to get back to you ASAP about the availability and when we're reopening and stick you on the list.
Super. Excellent. As always, Miles Price of Team Rhino Kilkenny. Thanks again for the company. This has been All Things MMA. We will get another topic on the board for you next week.